Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Chapter 4 of Masters and the Path. These are the starting initial chapters where we're taking things a little slow in some detail. From Chapter 5 onwards next week, we will be speeding things up and covering larger portions of the book, taking the essential points. As always, before we begin, let us start with an invocation. Please sit straight, keep your spine erect. Inhale and exhale slowly, centering yourself. To the Supreme God, Divine Father, Divine Mother, to my spiritual teacher, to all the spiritual teachers, the holy gurus, the holy masters, saints, archangels, holy angels, and spiritual helpers. To my higher self, to the angels of pranic healing and arhatic yoga, to the angels of theosophy, thank you for your priceless blessings. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to be of service, to gather together as a group, to learn, to understand, to become a better person and a better soul. We thank you in full faith. When you're ready, please open your eyes. Welcome to Chapter 4 of Probation. In this one, we will be understanding the various tests and the various qualities of character which are necessary for us to keep in mind, to bear in mind. And these qualities, some of them are simple enough things which we understand. For example, don't be hateful, don't be angry, and other things. But certain other qualities are ones which are necessary for not falling off the path, for becoming more and more spiritually available for the masters to use. So usually on many occasions, the higher beings, the masters, they select their pupils. However, before he definitely accepts the pupils, he takes special precautions to assure himself that these pupils are really the kind of people whom he can bring close to himself. The teacher takes time to ensure that these students are really worth it. And that is the objective of this stage called probation. And when he thinks of a person as a possible pupil, he usually asks someone who's already close to the pupil to bring the pupil to him in the astral plane. And this is something which we might have taken advantage of when we were studying the book, The Astral Plane, is that when we go to sleep at night, before we actually sleep, should we invoke and ask for blessings that we want to go to the inner world, that we want to learn from the masters, from the great ones, then we make our astral bodies more amenable, more susceptible to the vibrations, the higher vibrations that are coming in from the great ones. So in essence, what happens is that the great ones are on the lookout for us to be used as instruments and channels for the work. Okay. Interestingly enough, when we really make ourselves more available, more astrally available, more mentally stable, then the higher beings, they send people who are close to us, invisible helpers close to us, to bring us closer to them. Now, usually this step is not very ceremonious, it's straightforward. The master gives a few pieces of advice, tells the new people what you'll be expected of them, and usually very graciously finds some reason to congratulate them on the work that they've already done. So for people like us, there are 3 practical steps that we can take. One, we can do a meditation before bedtime to make ourselves not just more purified, because meditation has a purifying effect, but it also has an effect of raising our vibrations to higher levels. So when our vibrations are already raised and we are ready to form an intention, that's step 2, we form an intention that we should be in the inner world, and we should be learning from the master. And step number 3, we should not just limit ourselves to saying that, to desire that we should learn from a master. We should also have the intention that we should be an instrument of service. So here are the 3 main steps: the intention, the purification, and of course the desire to be of service. And then when the pupil is already accepted by the master does something very interesting. He makes what is called a living image of the pupil, which means the master takes matter out of the mental plane, the astral plane, and the etheric planes. Okay, these three planes, and he creates an exact counterpart of the energetic bodies of the pupil. He makes an exact counterpart of the causal, mental, astral, and etheric bodies of the neophyte. But of course, there's no copy made of the physical body. So we do not really have a carbon copy that's available for us in the inner worlds. Should anything happen to this particular physical body, we can't just say, oh, okay, and the new body, let's take the one which is in stock. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen. However, the purpose of taking all of these matters from the etheric, astral, mental, and higher worlds to create the causal, mental, and astral counterparts is so that it is magnetically attached to the person whom it represents. That each variation of thought and feeling which occurs in you and me. So say, for example, let's just say that we've been accepted into the inner world, all right? And so one of us, we're there. The master, the Holy Master, creates a mold. Like, okay, this is what you look like. All right, this is what your etheric body is like. Here's a copy of the etheric body. Here's a copy of your astral body. Here's a copy of your mental body. So basically, anytime we think something, anytime we feel something, the thought forms, the flashes show up in our aura. So the Holy Masters are not really looking at us in the physical world, what we're doing. They don't much care whether we are eating, sleeping, having an intimate moment, or wasting time, or engage in something productive. What they do care about is the quality of energy that we are producing in our auras. And that's what's really, really important, because if you look at this line over here, every variation of thought and feeling in him is accurately reproduced in it by a sympathetic vibration. And therefore, by a single glance at the image, the master can at once look at us. And they can see, okay, this is what it looked like before, and this is what it looks like now. So has there been an improvement, or there has been a disturbance? Okay, so if a person gets angry, the aura would become filled with a grayish, reddish kind of energy. If they are depressed, it would feel with a darker grayish thing. If they have feelings of intelligence or intellectual stuff, and they've helped people, they would have the nicest shades of yellow or blue permeating in their aura. So depending on us, how we are able to control our thoughts, our emotions, our words, and everything, our aura changes. And that matter, the etheric matter, is a living counterpart of that energy in our system. Now, it's only after the master has seen for a considerable amount of time that no serious excitement has taken place in the vehicles represented by that image, will they allow the pupil to get into a near relationship with himself. So the master will test us, will observe how we are allowing our bodies to behave. And the interesting thing is, no serious excitement. And this is the interesting thing, because normally would assume that just by behaving nicely, by not being negative, not being hurtful, we should be allowed to feel good. We should be allowed to progress. But no serious excitement could also mean that you don't really start having a giggling fit. Like you go, ha, 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 he, overexcited, over happy about something. So balance in temperament, a sober character, not a gruff, grim, serious character, but one who is largely unaffected by extremes of emotion. This is what the Lord Buddha calls the middle path. There is dukkha in life, there is unhappiness in life, there is a solution to unhappiness, and the way to do so is to follow the middle path. And one of the tenets of the middle path, if I, according to whatever little reading I have done, my understanding of the middle path is that if something really, really terrible happens, we say, okay, you know what? This too shall pass. Something bad has happened. It's my karma. There's a lesson. Yes, I am sad. Yes, I am unhappy, but I carry on. And in some time, I recover. And something great happens. Okay. I win a lottery ticket, or I don't know, something. I'm like, yay, I'm jumping with excitement. None of that. It's like, okay, something good has happened. That is great. It is appreciable. I like it. But this also can pass. So carry on. There's in fact a very famous saying, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Which means you're doing all the ordinary things in your life, in your ordinary life, and you're enlightened, you're a great spiritual being, a source of eternal sunshine. But after enlightenment, you still carry on doing your ordinary stuff because otherwise you just be proud. So anyhow, we move on to the next slide. When the pupil is accepted, he must be drawn into unity with his master, closer. The pupil is attracted and attached to the master, closer than a bond which we can imagine or even which we can understand, to the extent that the master wants to blend the pupil's aura with his own, so that through it, the energy which the master has will be constantly acting upon the student without any special attention on his part. Now, pause for a moment over here and imagine if you have a spiritual teacher. I, for example, would be considering Master Choa Kok Sui, the founder of Pranic Healing, my spiritual teacher. And I'd like to imagine what would it be like if my aura was completely in union with the aura of my spiritual teacher. How improved would my life be? How much accelerated would my progress be? The thought is mind-boggling. And the master here wants to blend his aura with mine. So the master doesn't have to do any extra work, any special work. Just by the vicinity, the sheer vicinity of it, will the aura expand. Here I have a small example, a personal story again to share. Several years back, you notice most of my stories goes back to my mentor because small disclaimer over here. You see, my mentor was someone who worked very closely with Master Choa Kok Sui. She had received a direct Shaktipat. Shaktipat is when the energy, the latent energy, was awakened by the teacher through a very special physicalized blessing. So for many, many years, my mentor, while she was still in her body, was a very powerful representation of a lot of energy. So I benefited from that, in that many of the teachings, which now I begin to distill through the books, she had sort of made practical. So a little bit of a word of thanks to whoever had guided me until this point. So at one story which I'm sharing over here is that we were traveling somewhere, and because of my exhaustion, because of the effort, I'd managed to catch a cold. My immunity was feeling a little down, and I was coughing and sneezing, and my eyes were watering. This, of course, 10, 12 years back, before coughing had not become such a socially unacceptable disease. Anyway, I was coughing and sneezing, and she looked at me once or twice, and we'd broken for lunch, and she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I don't think I am, because I got this cough and cold." And I was like that. So she was like, "Well, you're in my aura, and I don't fancy my aura being affected or infected by your ailments. So if you don't mind," she consciously expanded her aura. So you know about the health rays in pranic healing. So she expanded the health rays, made it straight so as to disintegrate and dissolve any dirty, disease-induced up energy. And there I was, seated not 2 feet away from her. And all of a sudden, I feel like I'm being brushed. You know, like a horse is being brushed, or a dog is brushed. I felt myself getting brushed in a semi-physical feeling. And there was a great loud sneeze that came from me, and my sinuses cleared, my eyes stopped watering, and I was like, wow, I feel completely normal. That was, and of course, I was fine for the remainder of that particular trip. So that was my personal example, my personal experience with what it feels like to be in the aura of a person who is slightly more evolved. Okay, not a holy master, definitely not a holy master, but someone who is slightly more senior, and the amount of control that they had over their system to actually expand their aura, and me being in that presence, because they were just taking care of what's in their space, I managed to benefit from it. So then I invite you to imagine what it would be like if you are in the aura of an actual holy master, and the holy master doesn't have to do anything special. They're just keeping their aura clean, their thoughts clean, their emotions balanced. Can you imagine the compounding effect that association may have on us, may have with us? Now, of course, it follows that such a relationship, such an intimate connection, it can't be one directional alone. Okay, because if the pupil has some vibrations within themselves which would disturb the astral and mental bodies of the master, such a union would be impossible. So here, my aura was unwell, was sick, and it was affecting the aura of my mentor, and we had gone out for some work. So it was imperative that we were healthy. Like, can you imagine, we're here to spread pranic healing into a new place, and let me heal you. Well, I can't even heal myself because my nose is leakier than a broken tap. So naturally, it's kind of self-contradictory. So we would have to keep ourselves in good health. If we are not well, if we are not keeping ourselves clean, energetically, ethically, we would affect the work of the master. So in that case, what would happen is the prospective pupil would have to wait until he had rid himself of those negative lower vibrations. A probationary pupil is not necessarily better than other people who are not on probation. Okay, so there's nothing like, oh, you're on probation doesn't make you great. You're only more suitable in certain ways for the master's work. It's like someone's become a prefect in class doesn't necessarily mean that the prefect is someone amazing or special or, you know, the cat's whiskers. It means that this person is a little more suitable because they may be a little more disciplined and they can keep the rest of the class in some amount of order. Now, when for quite some time there has been no serious upheavals in the living image, the master may feel that the time has come when he can draw the pupil nearer to him usefully, that he can use the pupil to get work done. Okay. Now, we must not think of this living image, okay, as recording only defects or disturbances, because it mirrors the whole condition of the pupil's astral and mental consciousness. Therefore, it also records almost all of the benevolence and joyousness, and it radiates that energy of peace, of happiness, of goodness, and the willingness to do good. So what is the energy that should be there in our auras, assuming that we are trying to become better persons and better instruments of service? So when the Lord Buddha was asked to epitomize, to summarize the entirety of his teachings, he said, stop doing evil, don't do evil. But then immediately he said, learn to do good. So basically the golden rule, do not do unto others what you don't want them to do to you, and do unto others what you would have them to do unto you. So don't be evil and learn to be good. So the living image absorbs all of this energies and vibrations all the time. Now, if the pupil on probation does something unusually good, for the moment, the master flashes a little more attention on him. Because if he sees fit, he may send a wave of encouragement of some sort, or he may put some work in the pupil's way and see how the pupil does it. Generally, however, the master delegates the task to some of the senior students. Now, the holy masters are supposed to offer opportunities to us, to the candidates, but doing so is a serious responsibility, because if they take the responsibility and they do the work, all is well. But if he does not, then that's a bad mark against him. So we like to give opportunities to people, but we hesitate because if they take them, it'll be very nice, it'll be really good. But if they don't do it, then the next time it'll be harder to trust them. It'll be harder to give them responsibility. Okay. So you can understand from all of this that the link, the connection of the pupil who is on probation with the Holy Master is mainly one of observation and occasional use of the pupil. Because it's not the custom of the adepts to employ special or sensational tests, okay? There's no great holy fire that you have to go through or nothing like that. In general, when a person is put on probation, we are left to follow the ordinary course of our lives. And the way in which the living image reproduces the responses, our responses to the trials and problems of everyday life gives sufficient indication of the character and the progress. When from this, the master concludes that the person will make a satisfactory student, satisfactory disciple, that's when the master comes closer and accepts him. This process usually takes just a few weeks. It's sufficient. Because when you observe a person in a day-to-day life and you see that they're calm, gentle, they get stuff done, they don't have a huge hue and cry, you understand, yeah, okay, this person might be dependable. Usually that is understood by the holy masters in a few weeks. However, sometimes that period stretches into a few years. It varies from person to person. Now, who qualifies to be the disciple? It's not just intention alone, because you see evolution, the evolution of the soul is a vital factor, because many of those who are being born right now are actually very highly evolved souls. And it is exactly such advanced souls that the great group of disciples who will stand around the world teacher may be constituted, which means more developed souls are necessary to serve, not just fresh young souls. So those who become pupils early in this life, like actually they're young men and women who become disciples, who go on to the spiritual path at a young age, the possibility is pretty high that they may have been pupils for many years in a previous life. And the greatest privilege that their parents, that the elderly people, the greatest privilege that they can have is to be associated with these young people, because through them, the divine work, the great mission, the great vision can materialize on earth. So it's okay if we are older, much older, and there are these youngsters who are coming in who are more aware, more knowledgeable, more powerful, more capable, because that's fine, because it's the age of the soul and not the age of the body which makes all the difference. Now we're going back again to one of the photos of one of the masters. This is Lord Maitreya, again similar in appearance, quite similar appearance to Master Jesus. Now the Lord Maitreya has frequently been called the teacher of gods and men, and that fact is sometimes expressed in a different way by saying that in the great kingdom of the spiritual work, he is the minister for religion and education. It's not only at certain intervals when he sees it to be desirable, he either incarnates himself or sends the pupils to state the eternal truth in some new way, or as we may put it, to found a new religion. So let's pause for a few seconds here and understand that all religions in essence are the same. This might be controversial, but according to the teachings of this book, Lord Maitreya is constantly in charge of all religions. And whatever new and beautiful teachings is sent out through any of them, new or old, is always inspired by this great being. So this person, Lord Maitreya, this great being, the Holy Master, is of the Retu, the heart of God. So all the great spiritual teachers come from the heart of God. They all come and say one thing: don't be evil, be good, be nice. And then after 2000 years, they need a reminder of this teaching. And so Lord Maitreya says, okay, you go and remind them. And they go and remind them. And us human beings, we are so short-sighted. We say, that old religion was false. This new one is the actual correct one. Let's follow this new one. It's a new religion. And probably the holy beings are over there scratching their beards and wondering, no, you guys, we're supposed to just adding on to the old lesson. It's version 2.1, something. I don't know. I'm just making a joke here, but you kind of get the idea that all religions are, in essence, inspired by the work of the great being. And they follow, don't be evil, be good. Do not do unto others as you don't want them to do unto you, and do unto others what you do want them to do unto you. Okay. And in this great work, Lord Maitreya is assisted by his assistant, the Master Kuthumi. So when Lord Maitreya becomes the Lord of the world, that is when Master Kuthumi will rise in ascension, just as the assistant destined to be the successor of the Lord Vaivasvata Manu is Master Maurya. Okay, we spoke about them in one of the prior sessions. Now, just because the Master Kuthumi is the ideal teacher, it is to him that we have to bring those who are to be on probation or accepted at an early age. So de facto, in the inner world, the person we will be referring to, we will be connecting to, would be Master Kuthumi. And it may be later on in life that they will be used by other masters for other parts of the work. But at any rate, they, well, pretty much all of them begin their work under the guidance of Master Kuthumi. Right. So then what happens when we actually go into the inner world and we are accepted by them? This is an excerpt of a speech which Master KH said for them. In the inner world, there's a slight bit of a ceremony that they go there, they're accepted, and Master Kuthumi says that I welcome you with peculiar pleasure. You all have worked with me in the past, and I hope that you will do so again this time. I want you to be of us before the Lord comes. So I'm beginning with you very early. Remember that this wish that you have to undertake the most glorious of tasks is not an easy one, because you must gain perfect control over these little bodies. You must forget yourselves entirely and live only to be a blessing to others and to do the work which is given to us. So according to the book, this part, there was a group of young children, souls, older souls in younger bodies, who came in and they were being initiated. They were not being really initiated, they were being accepted, they were put on probation. And the auras of the children, they glowed, they grew in size, the colors of love and devotion, they glowed with a living life, with fire. And so they said, Master, make me really good, make me fit to serve you. And that's when Master KH said that, look, only you can yourself do that, my dear boy, but my help and blessings will ever be with you. So I would like to pause at this point and contemplate on the inner meaning of this particular statement, that we are here, we have different trials and tribulations in our life. We try to be of help, we try to be of service. And when things are good, when things are not so good, we tell them, Master, help us become a better person, make us good people, make us fit to be able to do the work. And the reply of the master comes is that, look, it's only you yourself who can make yourself better. It's only you yourself who can make yourself good. Because we love you, we care for you. That's why our help and blessings will always be there. So it's kind of like saying that the masters can take us to the water, but they can't help us, they can't make us drink. We must drink of our own accord of the water. So the Holy Master KH, he then took other people and he went with them with the same ceremony, that he gave them a speech, he gave them a blessing, their auras increased, their auras grew firmer, steadier, as they glowed responsively in the most marvelous manner, okay? And then he took all of them into a particular cave. If you remember in the first or second session, we talked about where they lived, their dwellings and the natural surroundings and beauty in the valleys somewhere in Tibet. And they're shown the living images of all the probationary pupils. And then he tells these students that, okay, now I'm going to make images of you. And Master KH, in front of them, before them, he materialized before their eyes their living images. Okay, so taking etheric matter, astral matter, mental matter, he creates their bodies. Okay, one nested within the other, and how it looks. So naturally, it's very interesting, very fascinating. And one particular student said, my God, am I really like that? Now, in one of the images, or one of the living images, there was a patch of reddish matter. And the master said to its owner, okay, the original person, what is this? What is that? So the boy said, I don't know, but it's probable that he guessed, because the result of an emotional strain the previous night. So the master pointed out various colors and arrangements in the auras and told them what they meant and what he wanted altered. Okay, so imagine this. You stand practically, well, I don't want to really use the word naked, but that's not the word that comes to mind, because there's no covering. There's nothing covering us from the glance of the Holy Masters. There's no falsification of anything. We cannot pretend to be calm if it shows up in our auras. So the moment we think something, the moment we feel something, our auras immediately reflect that. And that living image, which is a living 3D model, living carbon copy of our energy, instantly shows everything else. So it's a doctor friend of mine. He's a sagacious person, really. I'm fortunate that I'm surrounded by people of wisdom and insight. Actually, I take a moment to thank my lucky stars. This doctor friend of mine, in a profound moment of clarity, he said, you can fake many things in life, but you cannot fake health and fitness. You can fake many things in life, but you cannot fake fitness. I can pretend that I have a psychology degree. I can pretend to be very well read, when in reality, maybe I'm just reading one chapter at a time. I can pretend that I've gotten a degree from some university and falsify something. I can pretend to be an entrepreneur and really rich and just live off of credit card debts and loans. So I can pretend to be many, many things, but I cannot pretend to be in shape if I run up the stairs and I'm panting for breath. I cannot wave my hands in thin air and lose 20 kilos of weight. I have to actually work for it. So of the many things you can fake in life, fitness is one of the things which you cannot fake. But that is a statement which is profoundly true for us at the physical level, for those of us who see things with physical eyes. For the Holy Masters, they don't need physical eyes. They're not limited by the external physical sense organs. They have the inner sight, the clear vision, clairvoyance. So the moment we think, we feel, we imagine, it shows up in our aura in varying spikes of color. In essence, what happens is, suppose, for example, if you do an experiment that, think of a red car, a red Ferrari, for example. In your aura at this instant, the moment I say the word red Ferrari, since all of you have an idea of what a Ferrari looks like, maybe not the exact specific model, we'll think of different models, but the moment we think of a red Ferrari, we'll have in our aura a certain thought form, a shape of a red car appearing. And the more and more and more we think about it, the more and more we talk about it, feel the horsepower, feel the acceleration, feel the, the ground clearance and all of those beautiful, beautiful things which constitute the Ferrari-ness of a Ferrari. It becomes a more definitive thing in our space, in our energy bodies. So we think of a Ferrari with obsession, with obsessive thoughts that, okay, I need to materialize a Ferrari for me before my next birthday. Okay, it's going to show up in the aura. Anything we think of shows up in the aura. Why am I talking about this? Because it's probably a point you've already understood very clearly. The reason for this is we sometimes lose control of our thoughts and we go on to flights of fantasy, which can pull us back from our spiritual path. So the Holy Master, he looks at whatever's in the aura, he points out various colors and arrangements in the auras and tells us what it means. So if you've studied with us the thought forms, astral, mental, and causal bodies, you would know, and of course, invisible helpers as well. You can see, so not invisible helpers, man, visible and invisible. In those books, we go through in great detail of what the auras look like for various developed people. And so the Holy Master hopes that we will be able to rearrange them so that our aura becomes pleasant to look at. Okay, and then the teacher gives them a blessing. Right. The final parting word that the Holy Master gives us is, when you see certain evils in yourself, take them in hand, manfully and effectively. Persevere and you will succeed. It is just a question of willpower. Watch for opportunities and hints. Be efficient. I'm always ready to help you, but I cannot do the work for you. The effort must come from your side. Try to deepen yourself all around and to live a life of utter devotion to service. Take a few seconds to read this, to ponder upon the weight of his words. And then what we're going to do is, we're going to look into the eyes of the teacher in this photograph that we have here. We'll look into the teacher's eyes and we'll do an invocation. And before we do the invocation, I would request you, all of you, actively, if you know how to scan the size of your aura, if you know how to scan the size of your spiritual cord, I would request you to do so right now. Scan and check the size of your aura and your spiritual cord. You may make a note of it in the chat if you wish. And then what we'll do is, we're going to look into the teacher's eyes. Take a deep breath, sit with our spine straight, and say, with the help and blessings of the Supreme God, with the help of my spiritual teacher, with the help and blessings of Master Kuthumi, Master KH, I invoke for your divine blessings of divine light, divine love, divine power, divine healing, inner healing, physical healing, divine help, divine guidance, divine protection, for your blessings of abundance, prosperity, and spirituality. I humbly offer myself as an instrument and channel for your work. Our limitations are not your limitations. We are instruments. We offer ourselves as instruments for spreading the light, for helping manifest, materialize the great vision, the divine plan. Please use us as you see fit for the furthering of your work. We thank you for giving us an opportunity to be of service. In full faith, with gratitude, with deep, deep respect, and with all our love, we thank you. Take a deep breath. You may close your eyes for a few seconds. Retain the mental image of what the teacher looked like. Take a few normalizing breaths. And then just open your eyes. We don't do anything special. We're not doing anything extra. But I would request you again, please do rescan the size of your spiritual cord and your aura. If you're comfortable in sharing, please share in the chat. And I've got a couple of direct messages saying that they feel a sense of tingling and vibration in their space. Great. All of you who will be catching this recording, wonderful. You too will be feeling a sense of vibration and increased vitality. It'll be very interesting to note what kind of dreams we have tonight and see what happens. Now, the Holy Master made a couple of rules. Well, not just a couple of rules. There are 6 rules which are enumerated over here. And these are his words. The rules which I wish for you to make for yourself are these. Number 1, forget yourself and the desires of your personality and remember only the service of others, devoting your strength, your thought, your enthusiasm wholly to that. So don't be selfish. Don't wallow in your misery. Just focus on service and helping other people. 2, don't offer any opinion on any matter unless directly asked for it. 3, before speaking, always consider what you say will affect others. Number 4, never betray or comment upon a fellow disciple's weakness. 5, remember that you have yet much to learn and therefore you may often make a mistake. So speak with modesty, speak with humility. Number 6, when called, move at once. Don't be waiting to finish what you happen to be reading or doing. And if you're performing a duty of great importance, explain very gently what it is. I wish to draw you closer to me, and if you will keep these rules, I shall soon be able to do so. In the meantime, my blessings rest upon you. So in the previous slide, we invoked and offered ourselves as instruments for allowing the divine energy to pass through us and to use us to do the work. And so here, if you go backwards from 6 to 1, number 1 is evidently very, very clear. Number 6 is that when the divine work comes, that inspiration strikes you that, okay, I must do something, and you're in the middle of your workday when that is happening, don't just be sitting around waiting for that, the next thing to happen. Now, I know a few people who message saying, if there's any work, please let us know. If there's something we can do, please let us know. The Holy Masters are looking for people like that. And they will give them work. And they want to see that you actually get up and do the work. Not that say, okay, you know what, let me just finish reading this book, or let me finish watching the 5th season of this series, and then I'll do the work. You get up and do it right now. If you're doing something vitally important, like maybe you're doing surgery or something, explain to the Holy Master, explain to the inner call that, look, I'm in the middle of this life-saving surgery. The moment I finish it, I will go and do whatever work it is that you need me to do. Number 5 is also, of course, pretty evident that since we are evolving, we will all make mistakes. And since we will be making mistakes and we don't know when we'll make the next mistake, we should speak with humility, with modesty. Number 4 is, of course, a sign of character building, of loving kindness, is that yes, we have our faults. We are not perfect by any stretch of imagination. So we should treat our fellows, with our fellow disciples, with dignity, give them respect. That, okay, you know what? Let just things be. Don't keep nagging, don't keep criticizing. In fact, don't even do that. Just let that be. Because number 3, it's not just what you say, it's also how you said it. It's not what you say, it's how you said it. All right. In this context, it might be of some pertinence to share with you an example I had with a potential client a few days back. So this particular client who one of the relatives had fallen down and injured their head, and they were in the ICU for a couple of weeks. A blood clot had formed in the brainstem, affecting the opposite side of the body. The body was kind of paralyzed, unable to move. And this person had requested healings many, many times. The person did get better. The patient recovered, went back home. Now, the client was very demanding of healings. That, do the healing right now. I don't care what work you're doing. He had that belligerent, aggressive kind of thing. Now, some people become aggressive when they're insecure, when they're upset. Okay, you might know people like this, that they respond to fear and anxiety and stressful situations by increasing their volume. So do the healing right now, do this right now. And okay, I understand you're stressed, everything else. And then his relative got better, was sent back home to rest and recover. Great. So then this person's thinking, okay, hang on, if pranic healing worked for an elderly ailing person, maybe it'll work for my spouse who has some sort of an issue going on. So he called me one day in the evening and said that I want to make an appointment with you. I want to discuss some things about my wife. And I said, yeah, sure, but I'm in the middle of something right now. Let's talk tomorrow at noon. So I was busy. Noon came, noon went, a couple of hours passed. And then I get a text message from him and his wife saying, why haven't you called us? Call us when you get free. Now, it was a text message. So obviously I have no way of understanding how they would have spoken it. But we are healers. We understand a little bit about how energy works. So when you get a message that says, call whenever you're free, you can understand whether there was an irritation or some sort of aggression behind that. Yeah. And I felt that, and I was in the middle of something a little strenuous. So I did not exactly react in a calm and gentle manner. I called the person up and said, hey, you need the help. You need the assistance. Why is it that you expect me to call you up for something that you need? I have given you a time for an appointment. You should call. And his response was, how dare you speak to me so disrespectfully? Yes, I understand I've made a mistake. Yes, it's sorry, but just let's have the meeting right now. And I was like, nope, I cannot have the meeting right now. I'm in the middle of something else. You did not respect my time. You could have messaged 15 minutes later saying, hey, are we having a call? But you did nothing. Instead, you waited for 2 full hours and then sent me this aggressive kind of text saying, why the hell haven't you called? That kind of a thing. And this person was like, hey, you're a healer. Take the money. Do the healing. Don't tell me how to behave. I was stunned, to say the least. And I explained to him, not very gently. I'm not a very gentle person when it comes to certain things. Well, most things for that matter. I explained the things to him, and with that harsh dose of reality, he said, I told you I'm sorry. Why don't you accept my apology? And I was like, there's nothing apologetic about your tone of voice. Can you imagine being told, I'm sorry, accept my apology, damn it, something like that. So it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. Now, if I take that example away, of course, we sorted our things out. Turns out there was an anxiety and panic attack situation. So yeah, we worked on that, no issues. But think about it. In the English language, because that's the common medium that we talk in, the emphasis we lay upon a certain word can fundamentally alter the meaning of the sentence. Example, let's take an example. Let's think of an example. The example is, she said, okay, I never lied to him. I never lied. Okay, I never lied only to him. Depending on where I lay the emphasis of the word, the meaning of the sentence can completely change. So if let me just put this up in the chat. I never said I lied to him. Okay, I'm gonna put this on the chat. Depending on how I change the tonality of my voice, you notice that the fundamental meaning of the sentence changes. I never said I lied to him. 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 But you notice that just by altering the emphasis on one word, the fundamental meaning of the word can actually change. Fascinating, isn't it? So before speaking, consider how what you say will affect others, because it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. And don't offer an opinion on any matter unless directly asked for it, because there's another saying that it's better to be thought a fool, to remain silent and be thought a fool, than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. This teaching, I suppose, I didn't quite understand it when I read this particular rule, but now it gradually comes to mind that some people might feel that they know a lot of many things, great many things, and they would want to offer their opinion on everything ranging from global warming to how big of a fashion statement one can make with their clothes. I don't know. I'm not very big on fashion. So maybe it is to compel us to not be prideful, to not have the arrogance of being on the spiritual path and therefore knowing many, many things. Because all too often it happens that we know a few things and then we hear someone out in public saying something and we feel it bothering us that, no, that's not the way it is. This is how it is. But they didn't ask for opinion. They're entitled to their own opinion. Be quiet. If someone asks you, hey, what do you think happens to us after we die? Then maybe we can talk about, karma and reincarnation and beings of light and all of that. Otherwise, if someone believes that right after death we go to heaven or we go to hell or we go to, the Great Lake under the pineapple under the sea, that's their opinion, their belief system, and they're perfectly entitled to it. Don't be nagging people and imposing your opinion on other people's ideas. So these are the 6 rules: service, pride, tone of voice, loving kindness, non-violence and non-injury, proper humility, healthy self-esteem, and constancy and one-pointedness of aim and effort. Fascinating, isn't it? Right. So there are some difficulties which are common to people. Okay. So irritability is a very common difficulty. We explained this in a session before, because to be irritable is a thing which is likely enough to happen to anyone who is alive right now, where people are always very stressed, very highly strung. So we live to a very large extent in a civilization of very loud noises. And above all things, noise is what jars the nerves and causes irritation. The experience of going into the city and returning home feeling very shattered, very tired is a very common experience for sensitive people. And you may have experienced this yourself if you've gone on a drive away from the city into the mountains or to the beach where it's quiet, where it's secluded. You feel your nerves start to calm down. You feel yourself beginning to settle again. I was reading an article, this was quite some time back. It's when after the lockdowns had started to lift and world was returning to some semblance of normalcy. And someone had commented that, do you remember when things were quiet in the cities? When the dolphins had returned back to Venice, when you could see the mountains from the villages again, when the sky had become clearer, when the pollution had reduced, because that was a very unintended but positive side effect of the complete lockdowns. And everyone remarked how quiet things were, how peaceful things were. Because noise, sound pollution is one thing, the vibrations of that is that one thing which really, really, really bothers our aura, our system. Now, many other things contribute to that, but principally the tiredness happens due to the constant noise, the pressure of so many astral bodies vibrating at different rates, all excited, all disturbed by trifling matters. And it makes it very difficult to avoid irascibility, to avoid irritability, especially for the student whose bodies are more sensitive than those of ordinary students, of ordinary people. So it's better, if you can, to avoid even a superficial amount of irritation as much as possible, because the effects of it last much longer than we usually realize. The example is, if there's a heavy storm, it's the wind that first stirs the waves of the sea, where the waves will continue to be agitated long after the wind has died down. So try to avoid irritability. There are many other forms of selfishness, which is the second thing that can delay the pupil's progress very seriously. And laziness is one form of selfishness. Now, this surprised me when I read it, because I thought that selfishness was different from laziness. How can laziness be a part of selfishness? It's because someone is so selfish, they are unwilling to honor and value the time of other people. So efficiency and punctuality are essential if satisfactory work is to be done. Many people are inefficient, and when a piece of work is given to them, they do not finish it thoroughly, but they make all manners of excuses. When they ask for some information, they don't know how to find it. People differ a lot in this respect. We may ask a question from someone and they'll say, I don't know. But another person will say, well, I don't know, but give me some time, I'll go and find out. And then they return with the required information. So try to be like the second person, not the first. In the same way, one person goes to do a thing and comes back and says he could not do it, but another person is persistent and holds on until that work is done. So laziness and not willing to do the work, not willing to put in that effort, is a form of selfish behavior. Yet, in all good work, the student must always think of the benefit that others will get and the opportunity to serve the master in these matters, in these times, which even when they're very small in terms of material output, the spiritual value is great, it's very high. Because it's not just the good karma resulting to himself, which would just be another form and very subtle form of self-centeredness. A good example of this would be, say, feeding the hungry or giving a blanket donation camp during winter. Because if you're on social media, you'll see you'll see these things. People are feeding the hungry, and there are more selfies of them than there are of the actual work being done. Now, of course, it's very important. It's vital that you raise awareness of a certain issue so that more people can come forward to help, to be of assistance. But to say, today I fed so many hungry people, distributed 500 sacks of rice, yay, so happy to be doing this work. Come on, you're just fooling yourself. That's just a subtle form of self-centeredness. And also think about how the poor person feels. As it is, they're not comfortable. They're obviously deeply unhappy. And then to be forced to pose with food in hand in front of a camera to put up a grateful kind of smile is it's very humiliating. Again, if you don't mind, I will I will diversify into one of my little talks, personal experiences. If you don't like these personal experiences, please DM me and let me know. I'll stop sharing them. Otherwise, if it's okay, because I find that sometimes I can make some of these teachings a little more relatable by sharing something of my life. If you're not liking it, let me know. I'll cut it short. Yeah. So some years back in the city which I presently reside in, it is near the mangrove forests, something called the Sundarbans. These beautiful forests which were affected by a tsunami. And due to global warming and deforestation, there's been a tremendous amount of tsunamis which are making their way increasingly inland, deeper into the land. And a couple of years back, our buildings, our locality, we were wreaked by a severe hurricane, and we were without electricity for 3 or 4 days, and there was obviously no supply to fresh water. In many parts of the cities, there were hundreds and thousands of trees which lay uprooted. In the middle of that, a group of people, they took an initiative and said, look, we're going to go to the forest areas. It's about 130 kilometers from the main city, and we're going to be carrying food for the people who are affected. I'm sorry, the example will be a little ghastly, such as the nature of the story and the work that we do. We traveled those many kilometers and reached a certain village. We had to go partially by car, partially by it's a vehicle called a toto. It's like a mechanized form of a cycle. It's hard to describe, actually. It's like a rickshaw. And partially we had to travel by boat, and then of course on foot. And we reached this remote village, and we are offering solar lights. We were offering non-perishable snacks like rice, crackers, or dried milk, powdered milk, formula milk, and stuff like that. And the villagers came forward, and they were all, some of us, they were sharing their stories. And there was one particular woman who had this completely blank expression on her face. Okay. She was being moved to us. So she would just walk, stand, put her hands out. And then naturally, when you see someone that despondent, that depressed, you naturally ask, oh, what's going on? What's happened? And someone standing beside her, one of the villagers, said, oh yeah, her 25-year-old son was killed when a branch fell on him and sliced his neck off. You don't have anything to say when you hear that. All you just do is, oh, I'm so sorry. You become kind of nervous. You hand over whatever supplies there are and hope that she gets better, and then she just walks off, again guided by some villager. And then as we were wrapping up, obviously our thoughts were very preoccupied by this ghastly incident, there were other groups of volunteers from the mainland who were appearing to help, to give mosquito nets, mosquito repellents, water purifiers, and that kind of thing. And of course, the villagers, they would avail of the advantages because their houses had been completely razed to the ground. These brick structures or mud structures had been flattened, melted, blown off. Nothing was left. They were all put together in some school, which was made of bricks and mortar, the only solid construction for miles around. They're put over there. So this lady, this poor, devastated lady, she was being hauled by the villagers. That same story was recited again. The next party would be, oh, okay, here's your stuff. Go, take care. And again, 3 or 4 times every day, anytime a group of helpers showed up. Can you imagine if something like that happened to you? That your deepest tragedy was being recited for shock for other people to absorb, to digest, and then to offer a bit of help. It is dehumanizing. It is, I don't have the words for that. Okay. Anyway, when we are helping other people, we should remember the human being who's on the other end of receiving such help, who's on the end of receiving this assistance. Don't make it a matter of subtle selfishness, subtle self-centeredness. Don't make them pose for photographs. And if you see other people who are doing that, gently bring it to their attention and ask and try to inspire in them a form of deeper empathy. Because what Master Jesus said, inasmuch as ye have done it unto the least of these, my brethren, ye have done it unto me. There's a story of, I think, Shirdi Sai Baba. I don't really remember, but there's a guru, a saint, a sage, who was invited by his devotees to come and eat a meal with them. Now, on the appointed day, at the appointed time, the master did not show up. But instead, a little dog had appeared, and the devotees looked and said, well, the teacher's not here. Anyway, what do? We can't waste the food. So they took some food and they gave it to the dog. You probably know how the story is going. Later that evening, or later that time, that day, they met the master and they said, Master, you didn't come to us. And the master said, no, how could I come to you? I was already very full. He said, why? How did you get so full? You knew lunch was with us. He said, no, you fed that dog. Because as you have helped the least of all of God's creation, you have helped me. What you have done to the least of God's creatures on earth, you have done for me, you are doing to me. The principle of oneness. Spiritually, there is only oneness. Physically, there's the impression, illusion of separation. Okay, moving forward. Other subtle effects of the same kind are to be seen in depression and jealousy and aggressive assertion of one's rights. So an adept had said, think less about your rights and think more about your duties. There are some occasions in dealing with the outside world when the pupil might find it necessary gently to state what he needs. But amongst his fellow pupils, there are no such things as rights, but only opportunities. If a man feels annoyed, he begins to radiate, begins to project aggressive feelings. Now, those aggressive feelings might not go so far as actual hatred, but a dullness, a dull glowingness appears in the astral body and begins to affect the mental body. So like in the previous slide, if you see someone who's indulgent in a selfish form of self-promotion, alert them to this gently, kindly, and inspire in them the need for empathy. So the qualities, if you just go back, what are the qualities that we need to make note of? Number one is irritability. We should not have irritability. Number two, selfishness. Number three, laziness. Number four, self-centeredness. Of course, it's the same thing. Number five would be depression. Six, jealousy. Seven is aggressive assertion of one's rights. And the next one would be worry. Because whenever this worry, the energy of worry is produced in the mental body, it's disastrous. Because if a person allows themselves to be greatly worried over some problem and they think about it over and over and over in their mind without reaching a conclusion, they've caused something like a storm in the mental body. It's like a vortex. Now, we sometimes encounter some argumentative people, usually on the internet and in the comment section of Facebook and YouTube, people who must argue about everything because apparently they love the exercise so much that they really don't care about which side of the problem they are engaged in. They just love to argue. You know some people, right? They just love to hear themselves talk. Present speaker excluded, perhaps. Now, a person of that sort has his mental body in a condition which is perpetually inflamed. And the inflammation is liable on very slight provocation to break out and become an actual sore. For such a person, there is no hope of any kind of spiritual progress until they can bring balance and common sense on this diseased condition. So arguing with people for the sake of arguing is not a good thing at all. It's a mental disease, according to the Holy Masters. Now, fortunately for us, the good emotions persist much, much longer than the evil ones because they work in the finer parts of the astral body. So the effect of feeling strong love or devotion remains in the astral body long after the inspiration for it has been forgotten. So it's possible, though unusual, to have two sets of vibrations going on strongly in the astral body at the same time. For example, love and anger. So at the moment of, like, you can have a lot of love for someone, but their behavior can cause you to feel very angry also. Anyone who's married probably knows what I'm talking about. At the moment of feeling intense anger, a person would not likely have any strong affectionate feelings unless the anger was some sort of an indignation, in which case the after results would go on side by side. But the two energies usually are not compatible, but they can coexist. Again, someone who's married or in a very long-term relationship might just know what I am talking about. Okay. Now, if people could see the vibrations which are set up by happy, gentle kind of laughter, they'd realize at once that when the astral body is disturbed to some extent, is the same thing as the internal organs face when you're riding a horse. It's like getting an internal organ massage. It actually does not harm anyone. It does something good. You can feel a similar example like when you tried out maybe doing yoga for the first time, and you'd wonder why your body hits you so much that it doesn't allow you to bend and flex and stretch in that manner. But still, after doing it, you feel the benefits of it. But what happens is, while laughter is good, sometimes we tell a dirty joke. So some of the less pleasant stories that foul-minded people are in a habit of telling, if you see the effects that become visible on the aura, there's a humongous difference. Because such thoughts are evil, not good. And the thought forms produced by them remain clinging for a very long time to the astral body, and they attract all kinds of loathsome, negative entities. Right? So you tell a very dirty joke, and that dirty thought form, literal dirty thought form, stays in your aura over and over again and attracts lower vibrations, pulling your energy down. So those approaching the masters must be very free, completely and utterly free from this coarseness, as well as from all the stuff which is boisterous and rough. They must be constantly on their guard against any relapse into silliness or childishness. Okay, childlike is good, childish, not so good. Don't throw tantrums. So be as happy and joyous as you can. It's good. The master likes to see it, and it will help you on your path. But don't let your happiness be merged or caused by any kind of roughness or rudeness. So your happiness should be pure, should be clean. It should not be due to a malicious delight in the suffering or discomfiture of another person. Like if you look up fail videos on the internet and see people, sometimes we see something, someone's fallen down or something of the sort, and like, ha ha ha, we laugh about it. But, that kind of thing is to be avoided, because it is laughter, happiness at the cause of someone else's pain, okay, at someone else's expense. That's not good. That's to be avoided. So if an accident happens to someone, we shouldn't, someone's fallen down on a banana peel, don't stand there and say, ha ha, you clumsy idiot. We shouldn't say that. We should instead rush forward to help, to console, to be of service. So loving kindness and helpfulness must always, always be your prominent characteristics. So later on, to make the situation lighter, you can say, you were a little clumsy. Maybe we can help you with some sort of healing for your chakras. And then like, okay. But to laugh and at their misery, at their obvious pain, that's not nice. So a clairvoyant person who can see the effects upon the higher bodies of the various undesirable emotions should not find it difficult to understand how important it is that those should be controlled. But because most of us don't see the result, we are likely to forget it, and we allow ourselves to become careless. And the same thing is true of the effect produced by casual or thoughtless remarks. Every idle word that we speak. So the next thing is idle speech, useless speech, gossip, okay, malicious gossip. These are bad. Do not be gossiping. Do not be thinking carelessly, because that will have an impact on your spiritual progress. Now, it's better that we should surround ourselves with beauty rather than with ugliness, even though it is of etheric matter. Okay, it's of great importance to speak correctly, clearly, and beautifully, because that leads to refinement inside as well as outside. And if we speak in a coarse and slovenly manner, we degrade the level of our thought. Okay, like many people would take that as an argument for the way you write SMS language. Okay, and such a manner of speech will probably not benefit, not help others. Because those who cannot be accurate in their use of words, those who do not have accurate perception and correct expression, they will not be precise in their thinking. And even in terms of moral crisis, their thoughts will be very vague, because these things have an impact like a domino effect, one among the other. So every word which is uttered makes a little form in etheric matter, just as a thought does in mental matter. Like I asked you to think of a red Ferrari, you create a little red Ferrari in your system, in your space. And some of these thought forms are objectionable. And here's a very interesting thing. The word hate, H-A-T-E, for example, produces a horrible form, so much so that having seen its shape, the author, Leadbeater, he never uses that word. You can say that you dislike something or you don't care about something, but you don't use the word H-A-T-E as much as you can help it, because merely to see the thought form that it makes creates a very uncomfortable feeling. This is a thought form of anger, jealous anger. So you can see it's explosive, it's dirty, it's hurtful, pointful, and kind of dangerous, actually. So you can imagine what the thought form of H-A-T-E creates in the system. Now, I am not entirely sure as to the veracity, the accuracy of this statement, but I remember hearing something in my younger years, much younger years, that one of the masters, they had forbidden the use of the word D-A-M-N and H-A-T-E, because these two words, they apparently create such a negative, distasteful energy in the aura instantly. It is quite problematic to progress. There were three words which I remember they had banned: D-A-M-N, H-A-T-E, and S-H-I-T, because it instantly creates that thought form, that energy, that smell, all of that stuff in the aura instantly. So those three words, avoid them completely, ban it from your vocabulary, right? Okay. Now, the next thing, I think this is point number 10 or 11 or something. The same thing is true with regard to the habit of exaggeration. So sometimes people talk in a very extravagant manner. Like if something is 100 meters away, they'll say, oh, it's miles away, okay? It takes them forever to do something. Or a day which is hotter than usual, it's boiling hot. Well, okay, that part I can actually attest to, because it is very hot over here. Now, worst of all, if they wish to convey the idea that something is especially good, they describe it as awfully good. Now, I am going to take this example of one of the banned words, is that a friend of mine many years back, he said, hey, your mom is damn sweet. I was like, dude, you're saying sweet and then you're damning that sweetness. What the heck, man? And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Your mother is very cute, very sweet, very nice, very gentle, all the good stuff. So we like to use paradoxical words. So it's not only a contradiction in terms, and it's therefore a very meaningless expression, but it's a shocking misuse. So the usage of something nice, like if you say something is very good, say it's very good. But if you're making it awfully good, then you're saying that kind of goodness is awful. So we emphasize, the Holy Masters, they emphasize the control of speech from the point of view of regulating the meaning of our words, because the importance of accuracy and refinement in speech cannot be exaggerated. Whenever we speak or laugh, this is important, whenever we speak or laugh, we make color as well as sound. If it is the right kind of laughter, which is hearty, which is kindly, it has a very pleasant effect and spreads a feeling of joyousness. But if that laughter is sneering or sarcastic, the result is very different and very, very unpleasant. So an example which is given in the book is that when you're parting with someone, you say goodbye. And that feeling may be accompanied by a real outrush of friendly feeling. But if you say goodbye in a casual tone, without any special thoughts or feelings, that produces a completely different effect on the higher planes. One is just a little flash in the pan, which means very little, which does very little. But the other one is a definite outpouring, which you give to your friend. Okay, so saying bye, as opposed to goodbye. That energy, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Because goodbye is actually a shortening of the term God be with you, God be with ye, okay, which became shortened down to goodbye. And therefore it is a blessing which you are giving. In French, they say adieu. You know the word adieu, A-D-I-E-U? It literally means that I entrust you, I commend you to God. A-D-U, like a deity. So if you think of the meaning of these words, whenever you say them, you would do much, much, much more good than you actually do, because then your willfulness, your willing energy, your willpower, and your thought goes with the words, and the blessing would be actual real help and not just a mere casual flicker. So when you say goodbye and you say, God be with you, it actually becomes a blessing. Instead of just saying, bye, see you for the next session. Yeah. So the intention makes a huge difference. And especially it's necessary for the aspirant to avoid all kinds of fidgeting and fussiness, because many an energetic and earnest worker spoils most of their efforts by not controlling it, because he sets around them an aura of such tremulous vibrations that no thought or feeling can pass in or out without distortion. It's always fidgeting, it's always moving up, blah, 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 always legs being shaken, always, playing with a fidget spinner, da, da, da. Attention deficiency. And the very good that we send out gets sent out with a shiver that practically neutralizes it. So be absolutely accurate, but maintain your accuracy with calmness, never by hurry or by fuss. Don't rush people. Don't be rushed. Calm, quiet, breathe. So another point which is necessary to kind of mention in this context is that in the spiritual path, at least in theosophy, we always mean exactly what we say. Nothing more, nothing less. And when a rule is laid down that nothing unkind or critical must be said about another person, that's exactly what it meant, is what is meant. It's not that when we happen to think of it, we should slightly diminish the number of unkind or critical things we say every day, but they must altogether fully, completely stop. We're so much in the habit of hearing various ethical instructions, which no one seems to endeavor to put into serious practice, that we have a habit of thinking that, perfunctorily or casually accepting an idea or a feeble effort to say, yeah, okay, that's all, that is not acceptable. We must remove that frame of mind altogether and understand that exact and literal obedience is required when a spiritual instruction is given, whether by a master, whether by the student. It says, don't be evil. It means don't be evil. Don't just be, okay, be 90% or be 10% less evil today. Yeah. It's like, just don't be evil. It's because in the earlier days, when a guru selected his students, his chelas, he formed them into a group and took them with him wherever he went, like traveling mendicants. Now and then he taught them, but often they received no special instructions, yet they made rapid spiritual progress because all the time they were within the aura of the teacher and they were brought into harmony with the aura of the teacher, as discussed previously, instead of being surrounded by ordinary limiting influences. And the teacher also assisted them in building their character and always watched over them very carefully. Now, our masters will obviously not physically journey with us, but they have arranged things in such a way that some of their elder representatives can come around us. A group of younger students can attend to us individually, kind of like a gardener would deal with the plants, working upon them, sending upon them the rays of energy day and night, the influences needed to awaken certain qualities or to strengthen weaker points. The older helper rarely receives direct instructions, but even though now and then the master may make a comment. And here there's a particular story. I'll come to the story a little later. It's from a book I remember reading. It was asked whether advancement is possible for a student who's alone, whose karma has placed him on some remote island, some remote farm or plantation, and he's posted over there in a spot where he's unlikely to meet anyone who's already established on the path. Now, undoubtedly, he may still make progress, although his task is harder because although he has less help on the physical plane, he will learn to become self-reliant and will probably develop greater willpower and determination because of that loneliness. It will be well for him to get into correspondence with some older student who can answer his questions and advise them in the reading in his spiritual journey, because much time will be saved and his way will be made smoother. So now in today's day and age, if we were all locked down without the internet, things would be, of course, very difficult. In fact, the Esoteric Study Club is perhaps the byproduct of such a thing, that we are alone, but no man is an island, and therefore we are spiritually connected, whichever time zone we might be in, whichever island or continent we might be floating around on this planet. And there's a story. The story goes that there was a particular disciple who was not very intelligent, okay, who was actually quite unintelligent. And he was employed by the teacher. He would be taking care of all the stuff in the farm, cooking, cleaning, dusting, taking care of the animals, and so on and so on. While there were some other students who would be instructed by the teacher, like actual sitting down lessons. And this first fellow was never called into the classroom, but the teacher would call him now and then, look at him, clairvoyantly, of course, and then say, okay, go do this work, do that work, do this work, do that work. And when the time came for their graduation, the teacher looked at all the students, and that first fellow, the lazy, the unintelligent fellow, he blessed him, and with that blessing, all his faculties, all his latent abilities got completely unlocked, and he reached a state of enlightenment. This was possible because he had done so much service, so much work, that he was able to get things done. He was entitled to being spiritually awakened. So it's not just attending a study session. It's not just reading or studying. It is by doing. It is by actually actively helping other people, that our acceleration spiritually happens. With that, we come to an end of the probationary path, the pupil, the probation, and eventually will come acceptance. So thank you for joining us today for this session on Masters and the Path, session 4 on probation. Next week, we will meet for acceptance and what happens there. And we'll be moving through the lessons. Hopefully, we'll be ending this particular book by the month of April. Maybe it might overlap a couple of days, but we'll see. So I hope you enjoyed it, found this useful. If you have any thoughts, any comments, any feedback, please do share. Let's end with an invocation. To the Supreme God, Divine Father, Divine Mother, to my spiritual teacher, to all the spiritual teachers, all the holy gurus, the holy masters, the saints, archangels, holy angels, and spiritual helpers, to my higher soul and divine self, thank you for your priceless blessing, for giving us this opportunity to gather together as a group, to use these lessons, to take them, to become a better person and a better soul, to be of help, to be of service. We offer ourselves as humble instruments for spreading the light. Our limitations are not your limitations. We thank you in full faith. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. Have a great rest of the week. Atma Namaste.